Welcome. Hey, listen, let's put it out there right now. Myself, those of you obviously have been on my podcast before, see me talk, Coach Schuman. I'm here with the Godfather of recruiting. The guy, when I started back in 2005, was already doing it for five
You
plus years.
you had
Mike
events.
Farrell.
Three events you had that year, right? Three?
The first year was one.
All right. New Jersey.
Yep. Actually, maybe we did two. We did two. You're right. We did two in New Jersey, right, that year. And then
You branched.
it branched out. Yeah.
Three and then 50.
And then 50.
You didn't stop. You didn't go 3-8. You just went 3-50.
We went in there the 1 year after we did. I think we did 15 1 year, like in between.
Crazy.
And we went in there, and I said, "What do you think about us doing?" I think it was like 48 events. I said, "We're not going to be able to do it many years ourselves. We'll teach everybody else how to do it, but a couple of years, if we could do this a couple of years, we can have a chance." And everybody was like, "Let's do it." What the heck? We were all, pretty
young, hungry.
We
I
were
started
young.
my own camps, the VTO camps, in 2010. That was 12 years ago. I still was young and hungry. But now, this is why it's called Legends Live. This is what legends have. They've been around for a long time. Ed Reed, he's got gray. He's a legend. We're not Ed Reed, but
I think he's younger than us, so that
know.
quantifies our ability to be gray.
I know, and I do color my hair sometimes. I'll admit it. But today, I figured for Legends Live, why? Why?
There becomes a point when, when you're a young gunner and the enthusiasm and the desire to get out there and do everything was a huge advantage. But now it's wisdom, Mike. It's wisdom. That's the advantage now.
Well, I will tell you this. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that want to run camps and start camps and all this other stuff, right? They have a billion brilliant ideas, and they don't ask us, and they make every mistake that we made, and they fail. And I could tell them, and you could tell them, what a dumb idea this is, what a bad idea this is, what a smart idea this is. Oh, I wish I did this in my first year instead of my sixth year. I did it for other people making money, which was stupid. You did it at least for you making money, but now we're going to make money together and entertain as well. The old guys are going to talk about name, image, likeness. Get off my lawn. I'm not that way, but something's got to be changed. It's just crazy. It's crazy that so much has changed in college football in the last year. I can't even keep track of it.
I don't think the coaches can keep track of it either. I was at spring ball with my 7-on-7 club, and I was talking to the guys at Rutgers, and they just said it's a constant 24-hour deal. You remember recruiting guys would call you up back in the day and would have time. Like Jeff Halfley, who's at Boston College, when he was at Rutgers, to come to my office and we would just talk about, okay, what have you seen at the camps this year? Who were like, the top 15, 20 guys that you've seen in this grade or whatever. They just have guys that are just basically from 7th grade on looking at them to see, is this guy a potential, and it's 24/7. There's no, and with the portal, I mean, you're an expert on the portal. I'm not a guru on the portal. You're a guru. I understand the NIL. You're a guru on the portal. You could tell what's going on.
Well, it's going to drive coaches out of college football. It's too much to handle. I mean, back in the day, recruiting was a lot to handle. Remember when they allowed unlimited text messages, and then they stopped that because they wanted to give the kids a break. But what it did is it gave the coaches a break, because there were months and weeks of time where they didn't have to respond, so they could be on vacation with their family, perhaps in July, and they didn't have to respond to some, sophomore kid who wants attention. And then they brought that back. So it's 24, 365 before the portal. And now it's 28 hours a day. You can't keep up with it. It's impossible. I don't know how coaches do it. And I know coaches are going to, say, listen, if there's an NFL job out there for me, I'm jumping on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a totally different lifestyle. I mean, I was an agent for 6 years, and those guys have an actual schedule. This is your time, obviously in seasons, their time period, which is the craziest for them, but that's a defined time period. Then they have their OTA. Everything is defined by the NFL. There's a stay away period. There's a period when they're only working with their strength coaches if they're coming in for that. And it allows the coaches to kind of get a breath of fresh air. How do you get Andy Reid coming back every year? How do you get these guys who are definitely elder fellas to want to come back every year because they have a chance to breathe. They have a chance to breathe, and unless you're built like Nick Saban, to be able to handle the storm, and so he got to the mountaintop. I think that's one of the advantages he had.
Yep.
He got to the mountaintop before it got completely crazy. So now he reaps the benefits, in my opinion, of everything because he has the structure in place. Obviously, he's phenomenal. I mean, if not the best, top coach of all time, one of the top 2 college coaches of all time. And,
yep.
So he did get that advantage. So now, all these little things, I saw something where someone said they think that some of these are designed to try and thwart Nick Saban, but he's already got the system in place. There's no thwarting him.
No, he just picks and chooses. So when you're at that point, you can pick and choose. When you're at the other points where you're trying to grow, you're just nonstop, and everybody else is trying to grow. Like Kirby's got it down, right? So he's got the recruiting going. He gained some kids from the portal last year that were key to his national championship run. This year they lost more kids. They haven't added anybody through the portal, and it's not necessary. Alabama's got it down. Clemson, Dabo is very resistant to it. So, he's got it down for him. He's going to get passed by, I think, if he doesn't adapt to it. But it's the other programs that just are floundering. If you have a new coach, like Brian Kelly, he had it down at Notre Dame, but now he doesn't have it down at LSU. I mean, they've sent kids packing. They've brought kids in. It's just it's a turnstile. Even if you're an old coach to go to a new place, you're going crazy. Lincoln Riley out at USC, same thing. So you're purging your roster and you're adding new players, and nobody can control it. And I don't know what the solution is to the portal. People say, okay, there should only be a set period of time where you can go in. And I agree with that, but I think the deadlines, the May 1st deadline to not play the following year, that needs to be pushed up. You can't let everybody wait until the end of the spring and then decide if they want to go. If Jordan Addison wants to leave Pitt, don't let him go through spring ball. Have him make that decision by, March 1st instead of May 1st and lock him in. So it's unruly. Like the Farrell portal account that I have, I mean, there's kids jumping in today, and it's May 16th, and they can't play next year or this upcoming season, but they're still jumping in. There's kids committing. We just had a kid commit to USC. We just had another kid commit to Nebraska. It's nonstop. Plus, this is the visit period for high school football. This is the spring evaluation period. So coaches are out on the road, as you know, but they're also tracking the portal while they're on the road. I mean, I don't even know how they're focusing.
How does so there's two things the two major changes. Obviously, transfer portal is one and NIL is the other, have created such a mess with zero. NCAA went from over-regulating everything, right? Like just over. That's why, and by the way, that's why Emmert is gone, right? Because he finally, they probably said something to him that he probably just like, hey, man. Thank you for the $3 million a year for the last amount of time period, but
$4 million.
Yeah, $4 million.
Crazy.
I mean,
but they couldn't keep track of everything then, but they did. Like you said, I mean, they tried to overregulate, and then they let it loose. And it's really, honestly, what's happened here, in my opinion, is okay. You're having say you got a health problem, right? You got a lump on your shoulder. You ignore it. It'll go away. Then it gets bigger. It'll go away. Then it gets the size of your freaking head, right? Then you go to the doctor and say, what do I do? And he's like, it's too late. You're dead. That's what the NCAA's done. NIL's genie out of the bottle, portals genie out of the bottle. Now they're trying to get Congress to regulate it. Congress isn't going to fix this for you. So what you're going to have is you're going to have the conferences regulated themselves. The conferences are going to regulate themselves, and then you're going to have an SEC only playoff because they don't need the Pac-12, and a Big Ten only playoff because they don't need the ACC or the Big 12. And then you got anarchy, and it's going to be hard to follow, and there's going to be a lot of realignment going, but they let this thing go too long when they should have had this checked like 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, there had to be parameters. They were scared to go to parameters. And now you get, like, in New Jersey and California, I don't know if you know this or not, you probably do, but you could get NIL in high school. So there's no limitation to NIL. And and that's just, I mean, that's a whole nother potential. Now it's only for probably a select individuals, but those select individuals, now you have, how does that work? Does Bergen, I'm just using New Jersey as an example. Does Bergen Catholic have to fight Don Bosco by paying them a player to come to their school? Like, how does that work?
Well, you remember, I mean, we had the Bergen versus Bosco recruiting and the Paramus versus, whoever else, and there's always that in Maryland. It's the same way. And in other places, it's the same way with the private schools. Most states allow NIL for high school. In fact, it was a big deal that Texas didn't.
Right.
And that was one of the reasons why, when Quinn Ewers committed, he wanted to graduate early and go up to Ohio State so he could make Columbus, Ohio NIL money rather than sit in Texas for another year that he didn't need and not make any money. So, I don't really know on the high school level, the investors in NIL aren't ready yet to jump in on guys unless their name is Arch Manning, but they will be soon because we know who the great players are going to be. We just do. For the most part, they can bust out, but you've seen so many ninth graders that you could say, this kid's going to be great. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you want to use New Jersey as an example. Brian Cushing is a freshman, right? Freaking monster, NIL him as a sophomore. But then is he going to go to Bergen? He's going to go Bosco. Who's got the best deal? It could reach the high school level. And then the high school coaches are going to be upset because these guys don't want to play that game.
They don't. Yeah, they definitely don't. I mean,
they have to.
Right. It's absolutely. And you know what's so interesting too, and this is not football. Obviously, we're in football, but I did something on the Cavender twins and how you know who they are, the girl basketball players.
I've heard of them. I don't know a lot about them.
They did the multi-million-dollar deal when they were, I can't remember if it's Fresno State or San Diego State they go to. I always get those two confused, but it was one of those two. And then this year, Miami, because Miami has that whole collective, they transferred the twins now they're transferring to Miami, and they're going there because they got a much more lucrative NIL deal. Now they are very good basketball players, but they're a unique situation. They're twins. They're all over TikTok, and they have all these followers. So there's going to be that kind of play that I think, I don't know. I mean, it could affect with the girls. It hasn't affected their play. They might be the biggest NIL financial recipients of everyone, but I wonder how coaches. Basketball's less people. It's very difficult to manage those guys or gals, but football is a lot more people. How do you manage so many of those? If all of a sudden you got 15 guys with deals, I don't know.
Yep, and 70 without.
70 without, 2 millionaires, right? And how do you, right now the quarterbacks are basically getting a few select guys. Most of the guys on the team kind of like they still defer to the quarterbacks on things. So there's not a huge, but once it starts to go to, I don't know, this linebacker now has 5 million TikTok followers for whatever reason, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden he's getting paid more, and he maybe isn't as good as this wide receiver over here who's going to go in the draft a couple of years, but he's more. That's where the issues I think start to become and without parameters like a salary cap. Like, I don't know that you need a salary cap, and I'm just kind of spitballing ideas, but the NFL has a salary cap, right? That keeps things in check. You can't just go and give Tom Brady $1 billion. It can't happen.
Nope. But they're also employees, and college kids are not employees yet. And if they do become employees, then what do you do? Then they have to pay for their own schooling and all that stuff. And some can afford it. Some can't. Some are making 2 million, some are making nothing. And then as employees, I mean, what, do they have benefits? Can you fire them? Can you fire a running back for fumbling in a key game? Can you fire Tank Bigsby for not getting out of bounds last year against Alabama? Can you, how do you handle them as employees? At the NFL, you can fire them. You can cut them. You cannot pay them. You cannot renew their contract. You could do a lot of different things. College kids are still amateurs, but yet they're making money now. So a cap won't work because there's going to be antitrust suits now that, like I said, the genie's out of the bottle. So now if you restrict the earnings of any kid, he's going to sue the bejesus out of the NCAA or the SEC or whoever tries to do it. So you got to go after the schools. And that's what they say with these collectives. They're going after the schools, and they're going to try to ding the schools for letting these boosters buy kids. So if Texas A&M is your example, which everybody uses as an example with that #1 class, and everybody believes it was an NIL collective class, which it was, but it wasn't. I think it's insulting to Jimbo Fisher and the coaches who worked really hard to recruit those kids for 4 freaking years, for everybody to just say you bought them. That bothers me because I know how hard they work. But if you're going to ding them for the collectives, then they've got to be the ones that reel in the boosters. Like the old days. If a booster went out there and gave a kid a car and Philip Fulmer knew about it and didn't do anything about it, Philip Fulmer would get slapped on the wrist, and Tennessee would get slapped on the wrist, and it would not be the kid. And I think that's where we're headed. But salary cap's a great idea. I would love it. Just how do you do it?
That's a great point, because the employee aspect of it is a difficult thing, because once you become an employee and not a scholarship athlete, there's all kinds of laws. I mean,
you have rights.
Rights. Yep.
You can't be terminated without cause. Is a fumble a cause? Is a knee injury a cause? They're really screwed, man. I mean, again, there was no preparation involved with this. They came up with a deal. Bowlesby and Big 12 came up with an idea to try to regulate it. And it wasn't a great plan, but at least it was a plan. But once the state started regulating it, Georgia and Florida specifically, then the NCAA pleaded with Congress, just as you see Sankey and others doing now, to get involved and come up with some sort of federal law, which says, now, if there's a federal law that says a kid can only make X amount of dollars as a football player, in an amateur status, that's federal law. There's unemployment law. Right? You can only make X amount. Doesn't matter. You may have been a millionaire, but now in unemployment, you can make this cap, period. And that's a federal law. And you can't fight that. So if there's a federal law in place, then someone would have to sue, and they would have to go all the way to the Supreme Court to overturn that, and it'd be very difficult to do. But the federal government doesn't, they got bigger problems. This isn't their problem for these whiny billionaires. And millionaire schools. The problem I have is that the small schools are going to be weeded out. The Wake Forests of the world are not going to be Power 5. There's going to be no Power 5. And those schools are going to be left out. And that's going to hurt their academic standing. It's going to hurt their enrollment. It's going to hurt their ability to teach. It's going to hurt their other sports. So those type of programs are going to be left, and we're going to end up with like 30 power programs that are getting rich, and the other ones are just going to drop off. And then we're going to see, education suffer and all that stuff. Like I live in Connecticut. UConn's enrollment, since they won the national championship, they won 3. You went to UConn.
Yep.
Remember the days of UConn where you could get in? You didn't need a 1,250 SAT, right? And it didn't cost you $1 billion, but they won 3 national championships in basketball. Now their admissions went nuts. Enrollment applications went crazy. Now it's a 1250 school and it costs you so much to go there. And that's all because of basketball. So think about football and what that means to the overall, financial health of a university, and then take that away. Like if UConn's losing money now, losing football because football sucks. They lose basketball.
Ah, well, that's why they have the issue with they wanted to get back in that Big East for basketball because they were starting to lose with being in the the AAC, I think they're in, or they were
They
losing.
were in the AAC, now they're not.
Right, they couldn't convince kids in the Northeast because that's where their hub is. They couldn't convince. I mean, even though they recruit nationwide, still the most players are from Northeast. They couldn't convince the Northeast kids to want to go play Tulsa. I mean, that's the bottom line, and it's nothing against Tulsa, but if you're from New York or New Jersey, they want to play Syracuse. They want to play. They want to play those games. Duke. They want to play those East Coast games that when they go on TV, all their friends know the teams, so on and so forth. And so that was a financial move 100% to go there because they would be able to get the players they want. And then it also, in turn, I mean, their biggest mistake was Rutgers is a bigger market. They went to the Big Ten, and then they were hoping to get in the ACC, I think, and because of basketball, but they did not move. And this is a couple of ADs ago, I think, and they didn't move quick enough. And I think Syracuse in the ACC, right?
Yeah.
So Syracuse took that spot.
Well, BC blocked them too, because what happened when
Right.
BC tried to go to the ACC with Miami and Virginia Tech, UConn sued them, and the governor filed a lawsuit against them. So when BC, won that battle and got in the ACC, the second UConn tried to apply, Gene DiFilippo at BC was like, no. We don't want them in. We don't want any part of them. So then they tried to get in the Big Ten, where Rutgers ended up, but they didn't have the TV market because
Yep.
TV market doesn't matter now because cable's dying. But back then in 2007, when we were going through college expanse, the TV market was huge. UConn's no TV market. Rutgers is New York. Now, we all know nobody in New York watches Rutgers, but you could get those games in those areas. So the Big Ten liked the contiguous state thing to get Maryland and Rutgers so that they could go into New Jersey and say, come to Ohio State and your family could still watch you because the Big Ten network is going to be in New Jersey. So UConn made a lot of bad moves and they tried to piggyback with some schools, but they're kind of an example of a program that fell off. I mean, they were in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, they were a BCS Bowl team, and they just lost out. They didn't have a spot. They were hoping basketball would save them. And during the realignment in the musical chairs, they just didn't land a spot, and now they're dead. West Virginia hung on, got in the Big 12. They wanted the ACC. The ACC said, you're not good enough academically. They wanted the SEC. SEC said, you're not good enough, for us football-wise. They hung on and got in the Big 12, but the next round of realignment is going to kill a lot of these teams off. And I think it's going to turn people off too, because, parity doesn't exist in college football now. It's either Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, LSU. One of those programs wins it all. Parity is going to be even harder to come by with conference realignment, with these TV contracts, with NIL and all this other stuff. So I don't know what we're headed towards.
Yeah, I don't know how you can have parity when you get in a situation where, let's say I think Louisville has a player they lost, right, to Alabama.
Yeah, Tyrell Hatton. Yep.
That's. I mean, so you go to a program that's pretty has a pretty good reputation, pretty good, and you become an elite player, and you think, well, you know what? Now it's about me improving my draft status, right? So I've gone to the mountaintop at Louisville, or you could say UConn or Rutgers or any of those places that can get a certain level of recruits, but can never go to that next level or hasn't gone to the next level consistently. And they go to Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, one of those schools, because now they're thinking draft status. And if you're an FCS kid, you go to Villanova and you become a star in that spread system they have there. And now you're a star wide receiver and you've shown that you're above that level. well, you're jumping, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's what's happening, right? So, so how, like, I guess at FCS they could always kind of probably replace with the next guy because they could actually do regular recruiting almost, so to speak.
Mhm. Yeah.
And they lose that guy, they replace him with someone like that. But at that mid Division I level, you're not replacing that guy.
No, no. And Jordan Addison at Pitt is the great example right now because he is probably going to decide this week between USC and Texas. And you can't replace a Jordan Addison. I mean, he was a Biletnikoff winner at Pitt, right? So you're just not going to find another Biletnikoff winner. The last guy was Larry Fitzgerald. It takes a good decade to 15 years. Alabama's spoiled with the Judys and Ruggs and, Ridleys and on and on, Devontae Smiths every year. But Pitt, a kid like that comes along every 15 years, then you're going to lose him to a bigger program. And again, USC is not successful. Texas isn't successful, but they're in big NIL markets. So, it really is going to hurt those teams like the Louisvilles, like the Pitts, because those kids, you can't replace. You're right. FCS, you can find another FCS body, but you can't take a superstar from a smaller school, and I'm trying to think of an example of one in like
Well, California, you have the San Jose States, the San Diego State.
Yeah.
Those guys win each year. They rotate, but they
Look at
get
Maryland.
players. Yeah,
Maryland just lost like 7 really elite players, young players, and not all of them went to bigger programs, but some did. Daryl Jackson Jr. went to Florida, and he was a freshman from Florida. Nobody wanted him in Florida, or really didn't recruit him as hard as Maryland. He goes to the Terps. He has a good freshman season. Then he goes to Florida, and Maryland's, left holding the bag for that. So I guess such is life. I mean, the winners win and the losers lose. But, I talk about it. I don't have a solution for it. And that's because, no one's paying me $4 million to figure it out. So I'm not going to think about it too long. But if they were, I would come up with some things. I would figure some stuff out. But to me, covering high school recruiting and scouting and evaluating those kids, and then covering college football and scouting and evaluating those kids for the NFL draft, and now covering the portal and scouting and evaluating those kids with little to go on sometimes has become unmanageable. And I'm doing the best I can, but I really think you're going to have to, these websites, they're going to have to staff up. They better staff up, because if you got one person covering a portal, you're screwed. If you got 4 people covering recruiting now, you're screwed. And those relationships with those high school kids, listen, the kid who commits to Arizona State 2 years later could be looking at Alabama and Georgia as a transfer portal kid. You have a relationship with him for 4 years in high school. You break his commitment to Arizona State. Then he's going to transfer in 2 years. You hit him up. Hey, remember me? The relationships are going to be more important than ever in covering this business. And I can't manage it. There used to be 107 Division I programs, 25 scholarship kids. Let's just say 2,500 kids, high school every year, that are going to FBS. Now you got over 2,000 kids in the portal. Or they're the same kids, a lot of them, but that's 4,200 kids for somebody to cover. You can't do it.
It's impossible. And there's the only places that have those staffs are the college programs, and they feel understaffed, right? So they're just focusing on whatever their school focuses on, whatever region they focus on, unless they're a national program. It's definitely, and there's so many alternative recruiting services coming in. See, I think that's one of the things, and why we got together, why we're offering our services as well, is because I think the families need some reliable people that they can get information from, because there is so many people putting information out. Like, I've never seen more 19-year-olds doing analysis for XYZ organization. Like what we're doing now, like analyzing players. They just played high school football themselves, if they played any football, and they haven't even had it. No one's taught them. It's like, go analyze players.
They make it up. I mean, listen, I started at 27. And I was green. I learned from college coaches. I would go and sit in, the offices of local college coaches around here, and I would watch film and break it down with them. And these were older guys, 50-year-old guys who have been in coaching for 20 years, teach me. 19-year-old kids, they just see what they see on the internet and they just copy it. And they say, oh, fluid hips, great back pedal, blah, blah, blah. But they have no credibility. That's the thing. So, but this is what I've run into, okay, since I've gone independent. There are some kids out there who know who I am, who want to be rated by me because they know I've rated kids for 25 years, right? And I've go back to, I'm trying to think, the Adrian Petersons of the world and the Vince Youngs of the world, and even before then. And then there's the kids who just want a ranking. They don't care. It could be some, Johnny slap butt 19-year-old kid putting 5 stars on him, and he's going to crow about it. So the kids that want it and earn it, those are the ones that intrigue me. Those are the ones I talk to the most. The other ones who just star chasing, and they, some cropped up, website with 20 followers, it gives them a 5-star and they put that on their profile. Good. Have fun with that. But what we're offering is sort of promotion for those kids that nobody's seeing, because this is the other thing too, with the portal and the high school, right? You got 4,200 kids being covered on an annual basis. More and more kids are going to slip through the cracks, more than ever before, because high school recruiting is now roughly 50 to 60% of a college's focus. So signing day comes, and it's no longer, let's take a full class of 25. Let's take a class of 20. Let's hold 5 back for the portal. Take a class of 18, hold 7 back for the portal. Let's roster manage. Let's move some kids off our 85. But with the portal being so important now, high school recruiting is less important, and you're just going to have more kids go FCS, and those FCS kids are going to have to start at FCS and then go off to Power 5, and the kids need more exposure than ever, I guess, and I guess that's what we provide.
Well, it's a farm system now. I mean, it reminds me of like when you see guys get drafted out of high school for baseball, right? And they go down to single A, depending on where they're drafted. Or maybe they start a little higher if they were drafted first round. But they go to whatever level was appropriate in their draft, whether it's single A, double A, and then they move up based off of their performance levels. There are guys that never get out of single A or double A.
Oh.
There are guys that are in single A literally for a week. They're in double A the next week. They're triple A, and within the end of the year, they're in the major leagues, right? So those are a lot of times the first rounders that work out, right? So that's what for the and if I was the NFL, do you really even care? This is just the ultimate farm system for you. It's like it's a free farm system. They never they don't. Oh, you want like the same thing? Like, oh, USFL wants to. We don't need to put on any leagues. People want to put in other leagues. We have college football, and it's a free farm system. And we could see guys. The transfer portal almost is like good for the NFL, I would almost say, because, oh, he's really good and he's at XYZ school. Oh, wait, Alabama took him? Oh, he's on our radar for the draft for sure now. I mean,
the colleges are doing their jobs for them now. Jared Verse is a kid who went to Albany, right? Now he's going to Florida State. Now, in pre-transfer portal, he would probably have to sit out a year, probably wouldn't be as attractive to as many schools. But now he's Jermaine Johnson. Right. So now you're looking at him. If you're an NFL team, you don't even have to really scout his Albany stuff. You just wait to see how he does at Florida State 1 year, just like Jermaine Johnson. And then you decide whether you want to draft him or not. Before, you would have to find that kid. You'd have to have a local scout who handles the Northeast. I got this kid from Albany. You got to watch him. Then you'd have to show him to everybody else because nobody believes a kid from Albany is any good. And now that job's done for them. So the NFL loves this. Absolutely. And it is a farm system, FCS to FBS to group of 5, and then, FBS is group of 5, Power 5. Even Division 2. I've seen Division 2 kids jump to FBS group of 5, and that job is done for them. So now the colleges are the ones who have to scout these kids for the NFL. But they still miss a ton. I mean, there's still so many kids out there that aren't going to get an opportunity to be recruited And I'm not talking just Power 5. Listen, Alabama, if you're not Alabama quality, you're not going to Alabama. You want to send us an email and you want a video, you're not going to Alabama, right? You don't need us. But let's say Western Kentucky, right? Where you could be Bailey Zapp. And Bailey Zapp went to Houston Baptist, Division II, right? And then he goes to FBS Power Group of 5, Western Kentucky. Now he's drafted in the NFL. I think the Patriots? No, somebody drafted. Yeah, Patriots. You're not going to do that without some exposure and some help. And I guess that's kind of what we're offering.
I wonder if that kind of stuff will go into college. Like, so how we do this stuff with high school, when these kids go into transfer portal, do they then begin to need some of them? Listen, the guys are going to Alabama. You're right. They don't need. Yeah,
they DM us all the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I get
DMs. Can you help me get exposure? I'm in the portal, and my first thought is like, why are you in the portal? First of all, why are you in the portal if you need help? But so many kids jump that there's like 600 kids out there in the portal right now, have no home, need help.
Right.
So yeah, it's part of business. It's another part of the business.
Yep. I saw Don. And this was interesting. Do you know Don Yee is? I don't know if he still is Tom Brady's agent, but he runs like this on the West Coast in California. This like I don't know, for lack of a better word, a semi-pro league where every once in a while somebody comes out of there and gets picked up by somebody. But what he did is he took a next step. Was he's doing like a transfer portal like combine.
I saw that.
And I don't know how many people even went, okay? But the thought process of what he's doing, I understand the thought process. He's like, well, okay, some of these might be prospects maybe for this league I have. They might be prospects for the NFL that I need to keep an eye on because I'm an agent. And then maybe I could place some of them if they show up and they're good enough. At a place, and now I have that relationship with the school too, right? Because a lot of the agents haven't been in the business. A lot of them have relationships with certain colleges. People don't realize that, but there are certain colleges that now the Jimmy Sexton, he controls like the SEC, right?
But the Bill Belichick Rutgers thing,
right.
That's
right. Rutgers, there's guys there. I knew there were guys that were like 2 or 3 guys that would always have ins at Rutgers, right? And then when I was doing it by third or fourth year, we all of a sudden, we were just every year, one guy from UConn would go with us. Like, it was just like, okay, me and my partner were both from UConn and we played there. And it was, you would land the guy, from UConn. Like, so those are ongoing relationship things that are offshoots that are so it is fascinating. I'll tell you this. It's fascinating. Like sometimes I see it and I go, oh, this is just a complete mess. And then sometimes I see it and I say, it's fascinating if they could ever hire the NCAA. I think it I don't know. I don't know if it's the NCAA or the leagues, but if they ever could get the right person in place, they could figure out how to put parameters in place in a collaborative way and really make it where there's all kinds of opportunities that would come from. I just don't know. But
here's the thing: they need a calendar, because camps need calendars, right? You can't run camps without a calendar. You have to know when your camps can be run. You can't run them during high school football season. So if high school football season is 365 days a year, you can't run camps, right? And right now the portal's 365. Now, once they figure out a calendar, maybe you could prop up some transfer portal combines or workouts or, NFL combine types for the portal kids.
Yep.
That's a business. The exposure part is a business. I'm just, the kids need more exposure than ever before. And it's not, it's not the kids who are 5 stars and 4 stars. They need more exposure. They have to work on their social media. They have to grow their social media. It is important to get verified. All that stuff's important. But it's the kids, that don't have a lot of publicity that could use, 5,000 views, where like there's 400 coaches taking a look at that. And these might be FCS coaches or they might be Division II coaches, but somebody's looking at them. It's so hard to get out there now, especially with, I know all the recruiting services, because I used to work for one, they're focused even more than ever on 4 and 5s because they don't have the staff to handle 3s and below. So, it's going to be tough for those kids. And we're not going to change lives, I don't think. I mean, there might be a kid. I mean, it'd be great. It'd be great if one of these kids that signs up for our package turns out to be a college football starter and then ends up being an NFL player down the line. That'd be kind of cool. Right. And we've all seen kids at your camps and the camps that I've been at that didn't get recruited heavily that ended up going on to be having great NFL careers. I mean, who was the dude with the Giants from Patterson?
Jabril?
No, Cruz.
Victor Cruz. Victor Cruz. Yeah.
Nobody wanted him. Nobody touched him, right? Yep. Didn't he go to UMass? He went to UMass.
UMass.
And they weren't even FBS at the time. So the Victor Cruzes of the world, those would be fun for us because we've done it all. And now it's kind of time where it'd be kind of fun for us to discover a kid where back in the day we discovered him, but
well, it was interesting. I coached against Victor Cruz because we were in the same league. I was young assistant at the time. And Victor Cruz, even though there are other guys on his team that went, to Rutgers and other places, I don't remember what it was. I don't know if he wasn't the right height or what. He was by far the best player in the field. By far.
It was academics. I think it was.
Oh, maybe it was academics. Okay. He was by far the best player in the field.
Oh, I remember him. Him. And you remember Benji Wimberly and Patterson Catholic. They had all these guys, and everybody was offering these kids. And, even Notre Dame would come in and offer some kids, and it's Patterson Catholic. So it's like Patterson is a rough place, right? But Patterson Catholic is where they go to be refined a little bit. And most of them turn out to be busts, right? And then you get a Victor Cruz who has no grades from what I remember, turns out to be an NFL football player. And that's the fun part of it for us is like, yeah, I remember Antonio Brown in high school. He was a 5'11", 165-pound quarterback, right? Central Michigan took a shot at him. Don't know why. And now he's Antonio Brown. It's fun. That's the fun part.
That is the fun part. And I think that there will be more and more of that. I thought it was interesting in the NFL draft. I know you cover that in how the Patriots in the first round took the center from, what was it, Tennessee State?
Chattanooga. Cole Strange.
Yeah.
Cole Strange.
That Cole Strange. That's right. I mean, I thought that was interesting as well, like how they felt like they had information on that player that he was warranted him in that round when nobody else even.
And they probably could have waited. They probably could have waited for the second round. Most had a third round grade on him, but Bill Belichick don't care. He doesn't. He won Super Bowls. He won 7 Super Bowls. And we talk about the Rutgers pipeline.
Right.
Rutgers stunk for most of those years, but he found players. He trusted evaluations of people, and they turned out to be. I mean, the McCourtys. You remember one of the McCourtys? I can't remember because they're twins. Was a throw-in. He wasn't a Division I football player. He was a. I don't know whether it was Jason or not, but Rutgers took the second McCourty because Syracuse and BC didn't offer him, and they were twins. So Rutgers ended up getting both of them, and it turned out the one who was the non-FBS turned out to be the better player, Devin or Jason, I can't remember.
Right,
but those type of stories are out there, and you're right. There's going to be more and more of those now, especially with everybody focused on the portal, right? Because most of the kids in the portal are there for a reason. Either they got homesick, or they couldn't win a starting job, or they got in trouble, right? Most of them. You focus on those, you're going to miss some of these high school kids that are super hungry, that may not have the best academics or may not have the flashiest 40 time. And those guys are going to go on to the UMasses of the world or even smaller and become NFL football players.
Explain how that affects high school players, because I think, and I've only been out of high school coaching for a year and a half, but it was starting to affect us then, especially with COVID at the time. But because high school players don't understand, and their parents definitely don't. Explain how the portal has affected the number of scholarships available to high school players in most cases.
25% roughly less. Colleges will now take 25% less high school football players. And that's, some are 40, Some are 10. You know, Alabama's of the world take 3 or 4 portal kids a year. And then you've got other programs that'll take 20 something kids a year. So, I mean, it really depends on the school and when the coach is coming in there, but 25% less scholarships available now to Power 5, not Power 5, just FBS schools.
That's a huge impact.
Mm-hmm.
That's an impact where those 25% now go to FCS, right? And then the ones that were at FCS now go to Division II, and so on and so forth. The Division II getting some money, not a ton, now going to Division III. It's a gigantic slope that goes all the way down the line that affects it. It's very, very interesting, and parents need to understand that is how important it is to get around exposure, really have a plan of what you're going to do and seek out people. I always say this, just because your neighbor played Division I football 25 years ago doesn't mean he knows how the process is now. And that's what a lot of the parents get caught up in. Like, they know, they're in their 50s or whatever. They have a kid that's a pretty good player in high school, and the only person they know is some other person that happened to play Division I football 25 years ago and think it's relevant to now. And then they seek the wrong kind of situation. So it's important to get that information. Let everyone know, like, some of the kids today don't understand. There's so much noise out there. So tell people some of the players that your top, like, if you had like a top 5 or 10 guys that you've seen, that to help people get a perspective. Every 5-star since 2000, are we talking, you have evaluated?
Yep.
So
1998, but 1998. On online since 2000. Yep.
So give people an understanding of like what that level is and those kind of players and what they look like in high school.
It's just, I mean, you could tell. And again, there's so many 4-stars. We had, we had your 25 to 35 5-stars every year. Then you had your 350 or so 4-stars. So those guys just sort of pop, and you can tell who they are. And everybody wants to be them, and everybody wants to be ranked there. And 3-stars suddenly became a disappointment, and 2-stars suddenly became an insult. And I'll tell you right now, having seen as talented a kid as possible, Percy Harvin, Adrian Peterson, but also seeing a Freddie Rouse, was super talented, but just a knucklehead, got in a fight with his coaches on the sideline of a national television game, ended up transferring out to, I think, New Mexico. And I don't know what he's doing now. For every great kid that went on to be a first rounder and an NFL star, there's a kid out there who's a knucklehead who didn't. And there's also a kid, J.J. Watt, who went to Central Michigan at first on a walk-on scholarship and ended up transferring to Wisconsin, was a tight end coming out of high school. Travis Kelce was a quarterback, 2-star crappy quarterback coming out of high school. There's those guys who develop a little bit later. And I'll say this as we wrap it up is FCS scholarships now are gold. They're gold. And I'm not saying that, a Power 5 kid's going to pick an FCS school. He's going to pick a Power 5 school. A group of 5 kids going to pick a group of 5. But that FCS scholarship with 25 less kids being recruited on the high school level, if you can get that FCS scholarship, which does pay, sometimes it's not always 100%. Sometimes it's grant. Sometimes it's 80-20, whatever, to get on the football field at Albany or Incarnate Word or someplace like that, to show people what you can do as a freshman. That's the minor leagues now, and you could end up being a Power 5 player. So every kid who sends us stuff wants to hear that they're a Power 5 player, right? Or they want to hear they're a 4-star or 5-star. And they can get disappointed if we say, listen, I think you're a Division II football player right now, or I think you're FCS level. That's what you should focus on. That's not the end, though. It's not the end. Like Travis Kelce, if he went FCS back before the portal, maybe he was never discovered. He ended up, luckily for him, I'm pretty sure it was Indiana, took a shot at him as a local kid. But Travis Kelce now would start off FCS. And then he'd realize I'm not a quarterback, and then move him to a different position. Or J.J. Watt would realize I'm not a tight end, move him to a different position, and then he would take the step up and go on to be a Hall of Famer. It could happen now. So don't ignore the FCS evaluations. Don't ignore the Division II evaluations. Don't focus all on Power 5 because it's not where you start. Freddie Rouse started at the top, and I hate to use him as an example, just the one that pops in my head, and is nowhere now. And there's plenty of wide receivers that were in that same class that are retired NFL professionals right now, counting millions of dollars.
Yep. It's a great way to end. That's a great point. We'll be back next week. We'll talk some. I mean, every week we'll have a bunch of stuff to talk about. Where do you think Jordan Addison lands?
Okay, so he visited Texas. His coach, Brennan Marion, his wide receiver coach at Pitt, is at Texas. He has a great relationship with him. Then he went right from Texas to LA, and I haven't heard anything since. LA is LA, NIL is NIL. So I will tell you this. If he ends up at USC, because there was talk of a $3 million deal and a house, and all that wasn't true, I know. But if he goes to LA for Lincoln and Caleb Williams, he's friends with Caleb Williams and his dad, I think it's probably more for the opportunity than if he goes to Austin. It'll be more for the relationship. I had Texas. The silence coming out of the USC visit concerns me if I'm a Texas fan, though. It's been dead silent. I can't hear anything or find anything on it. In fact, check my phone right now. Nothing. No. Oh. Oh, here's a hint. Hold on. This is a live hint. This just came in. I'm waiting for it to show up. It looks like it's gonna be pretty soon. That's all I have to say. I feel kind of okay about my prediction. I think he's gonna end up in Texas. I just do. I think people think USC was a lock, and I just think he's gonna end up in Texas. But I got a text that says, "Look at the end of this play," and it's a tweet. And I'm waiting for the end of the play, and I'm trying to see what it is. It's got to have a hint in it. So I'm going to have to go into this and really dig, because this is the cryptic crap that I get all the time, right? Nobody can say he's coming here, he's going here. They got to say, look at the end of this. What am I supposed to find out from this? So I'm going to say Texas, but it's just a guess right now. But yeah, go on my website, because I'm going to decipher what this freaking means. Oh, I think he's going to Texas.
Yeah,
that's my guess.
That would be the first mover advantage on that one if that comes true. It's Texas. How are they going to be next year?
I think good.
Yeah,
Quinn Ewers has a rare arm. If they can keep him upright, because their offensive line isn't great. He's got Xavier Worthy. He's got Isaiah Nair coming from Wyoming. Ajay Hill, Jordan Whittingham, wide receiver, maybe Jordan Addison. They got Bijan Robinson at running back, and a deep stable of running backs as well. That offense is going to be nasty if they can keep Quinn Ewers up. I think they could be 9-3 if they can keep him up. The defense is still a little shaky. Oh, man, I can't believe this. What does this mean? Now it's going to drive me nuts. This is like, those Easter eggs they have in movies?
Yeah.
They put stuff in there on purpose just to see if you notice it. Now I'm going to be watching this freaking play over and over again, try to figure out this hint. I just got a hint. I don't know what it means.
Well, on that note, we'll let you go. And I want everyone to know, first of all, you go to myfootballcamps.com/D1, and you can have me and Mike do. Mike does a evaluation on your film, puts it out there. I mean, if you haven't checked it out, it's phenomenal. You can see it at Mike Farrell Sports. Just go visit him on Twitter and on TikTok. It's on there. You can visit me at Coach Schuman on all social media. You'll see stuff we're doing. I mean, it is. There's no more powerful punch than Mike's like me. Like, we don't really even though you see the Godfather stuff, we don't tout ourselves as much. But really, this is probably as good combination as you could possibly get out there without having a Division I coach say something about you, right? So,
and here's the thing too, is like not many people are going to watch this podcast, right? But the ones that do just got a live hint as to where Jordan Addison's going to end up going. Now, I can't decipher it, but where else are you going to get that type of stuff coming through on your phone? It's just awesome. So it's fun to collaborate. And yeah, if you want 45 years or whatever of veteran, veteran experience to look at your stuff, give us a try.
No doubt. Check out Mike Farrell Sports. You can check me out at NUC Sports at Coach Schuman on all social media. Listen, as Michael says, his DMs are open, man. This is what we do all day long. You're certainly welcome to ask questions about different things. He does get a lot of people reaching out to him, as do I. So be patient, but we will, we do get back to everybody. So definitely check us out. We'll be here every Monday discussing something different in college football, NIL, recruiting each week. Mike definitely blew the roof off. If he nails that one with Texas, that's I guess that would be a beer on me to you. You know what I'm saying?
Man, now it's just going to ruin my whole day.
Without further ado, check it out. Listen, Legends Live every Monday.
All right.
We're going to start it out 12 p.m., see how it goes, and then we'll keep going from there.
Change it up. We'll see.
All right.
I'll talk to you. See ya.
See you later.